Hello friends, welcome back to the channel, or if you're joining us for the first time, glad you're here. Today we're exploring Zenless Zone 0 with a detailed guide on Hugo, the S-rank ice attack agent known for his incredible burst damage. And whether you're new to the game or looking to refine your skills, this video covers Hugo's mechanics, his teams, builds, gear, and strategies and tips to make the most out of him. So let's dive in and see what makes Hugo such a powerful pick. First, a quick rundown. Hugo is a burst-focused character who excels when enemies are stunned. His damage scales with the remaining stun time of an enemy, making him ideal for quick, high-impact swaps. Time it right and he can deal massive damage in seconds. Miss the marks and you need to wait for the next opportunity. But don't worry, I'll guide you through exactly how we make the most out of his kit. Let's get started. If you're new to Zenless Zone 0, here's a quick primer. Every enemy has a daze meter that builds up as you attack, especially with moves from stun agents. When the daze bar is full, an enemy is stunned. They're unable to act and they take extra damage. And usually an enemy is stunned for 8 to 10 seconds, depending on the enemy. And this is Hugo's golden window, so knowing how stun works is key to playing him well. Hugo's standout feature is Dark Abyss Reverb, a state he enters after landing a chain attack or stunning an enemy. Dark Abyss Reverb lasts for 6 seconds and it gives Hugo 12% crit rate and 25% crit damage. And this is a big boost to his damage output. The trick is to always activate this right before his biggest attack to maximize the effect. But remember, it only lasts for 6 seconds, so timing is of the essence. And here comes the real bread and butter when it comes to Hugo. Totalize. Totalize is Hugo's core mechanic, triggered by the finishing moves of his EX special or his ultimate on a stunned enemy. Now here's where Hugo gets really unique. For every second remaining of an enemy stun timer, Totalize will do more damage. So we want as much stun timer as possible to be left on the enemy. And if the enemy has 1 to 5 seconds left of the stun timer, Totalize will do 280% more damage for every second. For every second between 5 and 15 seconds remaining, we get an extra 100%. So the last 5 seconds are like the really big hitters and we don't want to lose any of those seconds. And what's also very unique with Totalize is when Hugo inflicts it on an enemy, that stunned enemy would no longer be stunned. So they get a get out of jail free card. They take millions of damage, but they're no longer stunned. And instead, the remaining stun meter will be converted into days, up to a maximum of 25% of their total days meter. It ends the stun, but stores extra days for the next cycle. Think of it as a powerful single target strike that needs to land critically. That's why we also want to always make sure that this one crits. We want 100% crit rate on Hugo, because if we don't crit with Totalize, his damage drops significantly, and we lose a lot of his potential. Now, also key to Hugo's kit is Charged Shot. We activate this by holding the attack button after his 4th basic attack, dodge counter, or quick assist. We can also hold the attack button after an EX special or after an ultimate. It's a solid range attack for smaller enemies or filling gaps between stuns, but his real strength lies in Totalize. It's a nice addition to his toolkit, just not the main focus. Now Hugo is unique in many ways, and one of them is his team building. Hugo pairs perfectly with stun agents. He even gets an attack bonus based on how many are in your team. You bring 1 stun agent, Hugo gets 300 attack. You bring 2 stun agents, he gets 900 attack. And this is a very nice thing about Hugo. He doesn't necessarily contest the other highly contested units in your roster like Astra, Yao, and Nicole. Now, it doesn't mean that Hugo can't make use of Astra, because he sure can, just that he can almost achieve similar results bringing less contested units. And stun agents, they build days and they set up stun windows, and that sets up Hugo for success. Without consistent and fast stuns on enemies, his damage potential drops. So running double stun with Hugo is highly recommended. Now I will also say that Caesar King works really well with Hugo. As I touched upon earlier, Hugo is unique in many ways, and so is he when it comes to team building. Hugo is incentivized to bring 2 stunners with him into battle, and all his gameplay is about is creating stun windows and then ending them manually with Totalize. And a very strong team, if not the strongest, is Hugo, Lighter, and Lycon. Now Lighter is Hugo's best stunner overall, but you'd be a fool with Hugo to overlook what Lycon brings to the table. Lycon can increase the damage multiplier by 25% of a stunned enemy, and he can also shred a big chunk of ice defense. This is a very potent combo. Lycon also hits quite hard for being a stunner, and he benefits off the buffs that Lighter brings. And with Hugo, you really want like an on-field stunner. Now, Lighter doesn't do much when he is out of energy and when he's out of his special fuel. Lycon, on the other hand, has quite a good basic attack string combo. And especially if you have Lycon's engine, staying on field with Lycon and just doing his basic attack combo until an enemy is stunned is very viable. Next up for squad 2, we have Hugo, Lighter, and Trigger. Now, Trigger can fill in for Lycon, although in this case, preferably Trigger has her engine, so she can be the one shredding defense in the absence of a Lycon. What this team lacks compared to Lycon's is a character that wants to be on field at all times. And there are ways to play on field Hugo, although I would recommend more using him as a burst DPS. For squad 3, we have Hugo, Caesar, and Lighter. Now, Caesar is a defense agent, but as anybody know that have played Caesar, Caesar deals a lot of days. And she also gives the on-field character interrupt resistance and 1000 attack. Now, this combo becomes even more potent if you have Caesar's engine, which increases the amount of days your entire team does. And on a personal note, I kinda wish that they would have included defense agent in Hugo's additional ability, so that for once when it's something class specific, they get included. But this is the first team I'm showing that only has one stunner, but Caesar more than enough makes up for it. And the scores for this team is quite high, and Lighter is interchangeable. If you like a Lighter, you can slap in a Lycon. For squad 4, I put Hugo, Lycon, and Xingyi. She can increase the stun damage multiplier by a lot. Now, what I will say, using Xingyi in a Hugo team, it does come with some challenges. Usually, at least I am very hard pressed to trying to actually manage to stack up Xingyi's stun damage increase fully before the next stun window comes, which is the double-edged sword of running with 2 stunners and also always starting the day's meter off at 25%. The stun windows comes very, very tight, and if it's a character like Xingyi that wants to stack something up, chances are that you won't have time to do it. This could also be a skill issue on my part. And another good team would be Hugo, Lighter, and Kolida. Now, running Lighter with Hugo comes with some perks. Lighter increases the amount of time an enemy stays stunned. Now, this doesn't per se translate into extra seconds, like when it comes to calculating Hugo's additional ability, but rather how much time passes until the stun meter actually starts ticking down. With Lighter on the team, you can actually be greedy enough to do 2 chain attacks with Hugo, and then you totalize. And this becomes an especially potent tactic if you have Kolida, because Kolida can increase the damage for chain attacks by 70%. And Hugo has quite a hard-hitting chain attack, and if we're talking deadly assault content that also brings buffs to chain attack, this becomes a very viable tactic. For squad 6, about Hugo, Xingyi, and Trigger. Now, remember the issues I was talking about with Xingyi earlier? Yeah, they're here, but even more. This team stuns faster than almost any other team in the game. And it's honestly quite a fun challenge, you try to keep up and try to stack your Xingyi to full before the next stun window comes. Obviously a very go-to team if you have both of these premium stunners, and very good to bring into any sort of content that has a big robot that is not a fan of electricity. Now, let's talk some builds. The best build for Hugo is a 4-piece Hormone Punk. Hormone Punk synergizes excellently with Hugo, and I find it to be up at every time I need it, so every stun window. It gives a big chunk of attack for 10 seconds, and then it is kinda dead in the water for a little bit until it comes back online. And Hormone Punk is excellent on a burst DPS character, which is how I would advise that you play Hugo. The other way we can go with Hugo is to go Woodpecker Electro. This is more of an on-field Hugo. And don't worry, it works, it just gets slightly lesser score than the burst damage Hugo. But I prefer to play some characters that are meant to be burst characters to be more on field, so it actually feel like I'm actually playing the character. And Woodpecker will do you fine and will pull ahead if you're playing on field Hugo. Say that you are running stunners that are kinda dead in the water without the energy, then Woodpecker Electro is not a bad option to consider. As for the 2-piece, what I found to be consistent, the best one is Branch and Blade Song. Hugo can make use of the extra 16% crit damage. But there are many options. You can go a 2-piece Polar Metal, we can go a 2-piece Astral Voice. If you're lacking crit rate, you can also go at Woodpecker Electro. And what is important with Hugo is that we want him to get as close to 100% crit rate as possible. And also remember that after a chain attack, Hugo enters a Dark Abyss reverb state, which gives him 12% crit rate. So without any additional bonus, aiming to be at 88% crit rate is good. And the reason why we want to cap out the crit rate is because Totalize can crit. And if it doesn't, it barely does anything. Just as Murphy's Law say, anything that can happen will happen. As for the stats, he issues standard DPS, so we want crit rate, crit damage, and attack percentage. If you can reach 100 crit rate while running crit damage on 4, that is excellent. Otherwise, opt in for crit rate, so we reach the threshold. On this number 5, we want either ice damage bonus, attack percentage, or pen ratio, in that order. For number 6, you want attack percentage. And now let's talk Hugo's engines. And I got some bad news. He really wants his own engine. Myriad Eclipse is tailor-made for Hugo, and it is his best one. It gives a lot of crit rate, a lot of crit damage, and when using an EX special, chain attack, or ultimate to deal ice damage, the equip regains the absolute zero death sentence effect for 3 seconds. While absolute zero death sentence is active, the character ignores 25% of the enemy's defense when landing a hit. Now, you can tell this is tailor-made for Hugo, and the fact that it lasts for such a short amount of time also makes it not the greatest on any other character. But there are some other options. If you have a Deep Sea Visitor, which is Ellen's signature engine, that will work decently on Hugo. It provides crit rate, it provides ice damage bonus. The second part, when dealing ice damage with a dash attack. Sadly, Hugo's dash attack deals physical damage. But chances are, if you're a day 1 player, you might not be using your Ellen too much, and then Hugo can make quite good use of Deep Sea Visitor. As for the A rank options, his best ones are either gonna be a fully starred Cannon Rotor or a Marcato Desire. Marcato Desire is not bad on Hugo. It gives him attack after doing a chain attack, which is exactly when we need it. Now, Steel Cushion is a decent stat stick with high base attack and crit rate as a main stat. So is Heartstring Nocturne. It still provides him with a good amount of crit rate and a good amount of crit damage, although we can't make use of the additional effect. So when it comes to powering up Hugo, your first best bet would be grabbing his engine, because he can't really make like full use of any other attacker engine. But if you want to power him up after that, well, we're gonna have to look into some Mindscapes. And there are some standout ones. His absolute most cracked one is his M2, but let's first talk about M1. Child of Hatred. When Hugo triggers a Totalize effect in the Dark Abyss reverb state, the Totalize benefits of 12% extra crit rate and 30% extra crit damage. This is quite a good one, and it provides around a 15% increase in overall power. It also makes reaching 100% crit rate on Hugo that much easier. But let's talk about the real cracked one, and it is the Child Within. When Ultimate Blaspheme triggers Totalize, it will not end the enemy stun state. My guys, my gals, this is absolutely freaking insane. Which means that if you go into a stun window, Hugo has his ultimate up, you can use your ultimate, trigger Totalize, get around 4 million damage, and the enemy will still be stunned, so you can then trigger Totalize again with an EX special attack. And if that wasn't good enough, additionally, when Totalize is triggered, the skill will ignore 15% of the enemy's defense. This is why M2 is absolutely freaking bonkers, and it provides Hugo with around a 30 to 35% increase in power. M2 is a very good stopping point if you want like really max out your Hugo. Now 3 and 5, they provide just some extra levels to all of his skills, which is around a 7% increase in power. Hugo's M4 does it so if Hugo hits an enemy with Shard Shot, Hugo will ignore 12% of that enemy's ice resistance for 15 seconds. As a Mindscape, it's not a crazy one, it's a decent one, it's around a 10% increase in overall power. Now as for the big one, Hugo's M6 Corona Thorns is kinda insane. Any shooting attack, any short shot will make Hugo enter into the Dark Abyss reverb state. And when any skill triggers a Totalize effect, that damage is further increased by 60%. And also the finishing move of EX special attack Soul Hunter Punishment also triggers a Totalize effect when hitting an enemy that isn't stunned, boosting the damage multiplier of the finishing move by a fixed 1000%. Now, Hugo's M6 is cracked as M6s should be. And this one is absolutely bonkers, and this one very much enables like a full on-field Hugo. And for this M6, we're looking at a bottom increase of 60%. Obviously, this is very deep in, we're talking hundreds upon hundreds of pools, so unless you poop money, be aware. But in general, the standout Mindscapes are M1 and especially M2. And now let's talk some strategies with Hugo. Hugo's playstyle relies on timing. Use stun agents to build daze and stun the enemy. If you're running Lycon, make sure that he starts the stun window, and then you send in Hugo to do a chain attack. Now, if you're playing without Lighter, you immediately want to hit the Totalize. But if you are playing with Lighter, you can cancel the chain attack loop and then trigger it again, getting 2 chain attacks in before you Totalize. In the short run, this can be an increase in performance. If dilly-dallying for a few seconds will in the long run cost you 1 extra stun window, then it is not worth it. And instead, as soon as you chain attacks in, you Totalize. Now Totalize does the same amount of damage if it's triggered by his EX special or his ultimate. So use his EX special or ultimate for Totalize while the stun time remains high. After you're done totalizing, if you use your ultimate, you can hold the attack button and do a short shot and then switch back to your on-field stunner. So then you swap back and repeat. It's a cycle of preparation and payoff. Get the rhythm down and he's unstoppable. So if we're running the standard Light and Lycon team, you use Light and Lycon to build days. When the enemy is about to get stunned, you make sure that Lycon stuns him. Hugo comes in through his chain attack. You hit the enemy with a Totalize either through EX special or ultimate. Use ultimate if your ultimate is up, otherwise do EX special. And then you repeat. Remember, when an enemy gets totalized, they will be 25% of the way up to their next stun window. And it is kind of a little fun challenge to see how many times you can stun an enemy when you're running a Hugo team. And a little bit of extra advice, always make sure that you go into a stun window either with energy or with your ult up. If an enemy gets stunned and Hugo has no way to triggering totalize, well, then we're kind of fudged. But in the same way, don't be afraid to use Hugo's EX special attack Soul Hunter because it deals extra days to unstunned enemies. So if you're sitting with fully capped out energy, switching into Hugo and doing an EX special is not a bad idea. And a little cheeky opening to every encounter is to start the encounter while you're about 25 meters away. You start doing his basic attack combo, and by the time you reach the point where the enemy spawns in, you are gonna be on your 4th basic attack hit and you can do a short shot. You can then proceed to do his EX special and build a little bit of extra days, and then as soon as the boss truly becomes active, you defensive assist into your stunner. Alright ladies and gentlemen, that's all I can teach you about Hugo. He's a super fun, super strong ice attacker, and hopefully after this guide you understand how to play him. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to put it down in the comments. And if you enjoyed the guide, feel super free to leave a thumbs up, and if you absolutely hated it with your entire being, thumbs down. All of my testing and all of my footage were from the creator beta servers, so changes might apply, but if they do, I'll tell you all about it down in the comments. And thank you so much for watching. Big hugs, don't do drugs, and spend it all on anime jugs. Until next time, Hako out. And also thank you Ellen for stepping in. Do you have something you want to say?
And now.